Boosting posts is for amateur advertisers. One of the biggest mistakes I see business owners making is relying only on organic social or only on paid social. It really should be a two-pronged approach, and here's why. Cost per acquisition could be the most informative metric to be tracking in an ad campaign. And the reason is that it's... Welcome to Great Take, a video production and marketing podcast based in Austin, Texas. We are real practitioners working in the field, producing everything from TV commercials to social media content, and then running that content through every marketing channel on earth. We see what works and what flops, and we'll cover it all on this show. If you're interested in video production or leveraging video to supercharge your marketing, you have come to the right place. Welcome to the Great Take podcast. Kayla, what are we talking about today?
So today we're talking about the difference between marketing and advertising. What would you say are those key points?
So marketing is the whole breadth of how your brand interacts with the public. And advertising is really just one sliver of that on how you run paid campaigns. At least that's how I think about it. Is advertising is you pay to put content out there, usually with a conversion action in mind or a call to action in mind. Because you're paying for advertising, you want something out of it. And so that usually is you're asking for some sort of action, some sort of call to action. So marketing is the big picture of everything that your brand does in public, and advertising is when you pay for placement.
Okay, so touching on advertising, what would you say are the most important metrics to track?
So there are two metrics that I really care about, but there are a few others that I think create kind of smoke and mirrors in the advertising world. The first one that I don't really care about that much is impressions. Now, impressions go back to the golden day of advertising where you buy a billboard on the side of the freeway and you can measure, okay, 50,000 people pass this sign every single day. That's an impression, but there's no action attached to that. But a lot of traditional media will still push impressions. Now, I don't think it's a useless metric. I just think it's harder to track and it's harder to actually see results and see a return on investment when you're just looking at impressions. Similar to impressions, some platforms will track reach, which just means the number of people you're hitting, whereas impressions could be those people, but how many times they see it, because one person might get 5 impressions a day. These are important metrics. I don't think they're the most crucial ones. I think what business owners really need to be focused on is conversions and click-through rate. Now, click-through rate is super important because it shows that your ad is performing. It means they see it, they like it, they hit the button, they do an action. So your ad was so good that you at least got an action from somebody. But probably the most crucial metric to track is conversions. And it's for a pretty simple reason. It means that someone took enough steps to get into your inbox. Either get into your inbox as a lead of someone that wants your service, or get into your inbox as a purchase, that they bought something on your website. Conversions also track how good your advertising ecosystem is, because it's not good enough to just get someone to your website and then they fall off. You need to get them to your website and then have a good enough funnel to get them to take the action of submitting a form or buying the item. So at the end of the day, conversions are probably the most crucial thing to track for business owners. So if you're running ad campaigns, especially digital ad campaigns, you always want them to be data-driven. And to me, the most important piece of data is your click-through rate and your conversions.
How do you help a client determine what kind of social media content they need?
There's always going to be a tension between brand and performance. If you think about a Nike commercial or an Apple commercial, they're hardly ever selling you an item. They do sometimes, but for the most part, they are selling you a feeling. They're selling you a brand. And if you like that feeling and you identify with that feeling, then you buy those products. You enter into that ecosystem. Whereas if you think about like a cell phone company, they're always selling 3-for-1 cell phones, 3-for-1 cell phones, get on a family plan for $20 a month. And there's always a repetition of the selling point at least 3 times in those commercials. And so those are 2 examples of branding versus performance. Now, this can play out with digital ad campaigns. It can also play out with your social media content. Like when someone comes to me and says, I want to go viral, I want 1 million followers, I'll tell them, okay, great. Let's have you do some dance routines and lip sync to Sabrina Carpenter songs. Do you want to do that? And they'll say, no, I don't want to do that. And it's because it would kill their brand if they're like an attorney or a doctor or a serious business owner. But if they did those things, they would build a following and they would go viral and have 1 million followers in a month. But that's where that tension comes in, is you have to stay true to your brand while also finding ways that you can make content perform for you. And there is a balance there. That's the expertise that an agency brings to these conversations, is we can show you case studies of how we've worked with other either serious brands or lighthearted brands and found that balance of performance. So when brands are asking us, what kind of content should I make? It's really more of a branding question. It's how do you want to appear in the marketplace? Do you want to appear as a thought leader, as, someone to be taken seriously? Or is your brand a little bit more lighthearted? Is it fun? Is it playful? If it's fun and it's playful, we can probably make viral content much easier. But if there's like a real professionalism that needs to be the through line in your brand, it's just going to take a little bit more work. It's not impossible, but we just have to work a little bit harder to get content like that to perform.
In cases like that, do you see that there's a necessity for running ad campaigns in conjunction with organic social?
One of the biggest mistakes I see business owners making is relying only on organic social or only on paid social. It really should be a two-pronged approach, and here's why. If I was running a brand, it doesn't matter what industry it is, I would be putting out some level of organic content. Maybe it's 3 times a week, maybe it's every single day, but I would also be running paid ads. And that's because paid ads are just more predictable. If you spend X amount of dollars, you get X amount of results, and you can be getting those results next week. Whereas organic, it just takes time. It takes time to build up the content, build up the following, build up the credential within the community. And you're probably looking at more like a 6-month to 12-month roadmap to really get going on organic content and starting to see big returns from that and starting to see a big following from that. Whereas ads, you'll see results next week from that. The other advantage of paid ads is just the precision, either targeting precise demographics or targeting precise products to be shown to precise demographics. And so there's a lot more that you can hone in on and really work off of the data of the ad campaigns with paid, and you just don't get quite as much data on the organic side of things.
There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to ad campaigns and boosting videos. We should talk about that and what you think the biggest thing business owners should know when running any sort of ad campaign.
Boosting posts is for amateur advertisers. And listen, there are a lot of business owners out there that are boosting posts because that's what they know how to do and it's easy. But if you want to be serious about advertising, you need to be working within Meta Ads Manager. Boosting a post is like going to the gym and just doing bicep curls. You get these vanity muscles just like you get vanity metrics with a boost. Your view count goes up, but you're not really building a campaign with actionable results in it and data-driven results. If you want to be serious about advertising, you need to be running campaigns through Ads Manager. Now, there are a lot of instances of business owners using Boost because it's what's easy and it does get some results, but business owners that get serious about advertising will get into Ads Manager where they're running individual campaigns that happen off of the news feed, and they're getting serious data about impressions and reach and click-through rate and all the data that you really need to inform how much money you're going to spend and what your return on investment is on those ads. Oftentimes in early conversations with clients, they say, yeah, we've been doing advertising, we've been boosting some posts, and it always makes me cringe a little bit because I know that we can get so much more out of their ad dollars if we pull that into Ads Manager and actually run real campaigns with that.
What's the biggest mistake brands make with creative when they're trying to do it in-house?
The biggest mistake brands make with creative in general is too many cooks in the kitchen. Bureaucracy kills creativity. I can't tell you how many times we've had early conversations with a client. They say, we want to do something edgy, we want to do something funny, and then we write that commercial for them, but then it goes to the supervisor, then it goes to the C-suite, then it goes to the legal department, and all of a sudden you've got a boiled down, boring corporate video all over again. For any company that's looking to make an ad campaign or start doing social media, you need to reduce the number of stakeholders and be willing to take some risks. At the end of the day, marketing has to involve experimentation. You have to be willing to make some mistakes to see what works and to see what really resonates with your audience. And if you cramp the creative process with either too many stakeholders or just a lot of red tape, you're just going to end up with the same old stuff that everyone else is putting out.
I think that's a funny point going back to Nutter Butter social media. There's got to be a C-suite holder who is literally scratching their head going, what is going on? But it's working. They're making really great stuff on social media that's going viral.
Someone at Nutter Butter said, go nuts, no strings attached, carte blanche, do whatever you want. And it actually worked. I mean, that's a big risk. It takes a lot of cojones in the C-suite to approve something like that. But then look at the results.
What was his name? Aaron?
Aiden.
Aiden. Who is Aiden?
Let's just talk about Nutter Butter for a second.
I love Nutter Butter's marketing.
It's such a fever dream and it's so nonsensical, but it's a candy bar. So who cares? Someone really smart in that company was like, why are we taking ourselves so seriously? This is like a silly little snack that you buy when you're in middle school from a vending machine. Let's have fun with this. Let's go nuts with this. And it brought this Nutter Butters have been around forever, but now Gen Z and Gen Alpha is all about Nutter Butter because it has such an entertaining channel.
And you see other companies like Sour Patch Kids trying to follow suit on exactly what marketing tactics they're doing.
And there are these little like Easter eggs within all that content, like Aiden, like who is Aiden?
Aiden had to be like the social media manager that pitched all of this, and they're just like giving him little, hearts throughout the whole thing or something.
It reminds me of like film fanatics or music fanatics that will hone in and try to interpret these little pieces of songs or these little pieces of movies. And I think that's what the followers of Nutter Butter are doing is they're honing in on these little like repetitions, wondering, okay, what is this? Okay, I'm going to keep tuning in because I want to find more about these little mysteries that are put into the brand. And it has nothing to do with the food. It's just it's entertainment, and it's beating out a lot of its competitors. We're just waiting for a client to come and ask for Nutter Butter. It's a big risk, but it could be amazing.
Yeah. How do you approach storytelling differently for digital versus broadcast?
Digital is always going to be a little bit more performance-based, and that's because the button is right there. You're watching digital ads on the device where you take the action. Whereas broadcast, maybe you're watching it on a laptop, but for the most part, you're probably watching it on your TV, streaming at home, or you're watching it on TV at a bar in a restaurant. And so digital is always going to have a little stronger CTA, click this link and then go to this sales funnel. Whereas broadcast, I think, is always going to be a little bit more awareness based of we're going to build up our brand. There's still going to be a CTA at the end, most likely, of call us today, visit our website, ask about this deal. But it's just not inherently as performance based as digital. And that also plays into the metrics of it all. There are only so many metrics that you can measure with broadcast, whether it's, on cable television or it's on streaming television. Same thing with a billboard on the side of the freeway. You can measure impressions. If you get really good at it, you can also measure some degree of conversions. But on digital, it's just so precise. You know exactly how many clicks. You know exactly what the click-through rate is. You know exactly how many conversions. You know what your cost per conversion is down to a T. And so I think there's a huge advantage, especially to smaller companies, on focusing on digital because it's just so much more trackable. You really see what your ad dollars do. Whereas I think those broadcast commercials, if you've got the budget, go for it. But that's kind of the next level. If you're looking for the fastest way to see a return on investment with advertising, it has to be through digital.
Does cinematic content still have a place on social media?
There's a lot of crap on social media. And so taking a more cinematic approach can sometimes separate you from the rest of the crowd. It can pull you out of the fray and actually create a special look as opposed to a look like everybody else. There's so much content there's so much content on social media that's just filmed on a cell phone, people sitting in their car, and that content performs. It certainly performs. But I think there's also room for brands, one, to mix in some cinematic content, and for certain brands to just lean heavy into it. If your brand is high end, or if you just really want to create an aesthetic with your brand, then you have to be able to customize that aesthetic. And an iPhone is just not customizable. There is a look to an iPhone, and we all know what it looks like. But when you use nicer cameras, nicer lenses, actual lighting techniques, a little bit of art direction, that allows you to create an aesthetic, which in turn helps you create a brand and helps you create a mood. And when you find the right people that are into that, they will come back to you over and over because it's something different. And honestly, it's just something pretty and aesthetically pleasing. I, for one, would like to advocate a little bit more for that on social media.
I think that's where UGC content is seeing a big rise right now because we don't have a lot of brands that are necessarily iPhone forward or kind of that more nonchalant content. And we're seeing a lot of people reach out to influencers who are used to just putting up their phone and doing a product review in their car, talking about things so that you have that distinction. Because you don't see Nike doing iPhone footage on any of their stuff because they have a very distinct brand. And I think that's important for cinematic content in the social universe. How do I decide what kind of content to make on social media?
If you're just getting started with social media, stick to what you know. Everyone is an expert in something. Everyone has years of experience in something. It might be baking, it might be bicycle repair, it might be mowing lawns. But whatever that thing is that you already know a ton of information about, that is what you should be posting on social media if you really want to grow a channel. And it can probably turn into, if it's not already your business, it can turn into a business for you. And the reason I say that comes down to consistency. If you have to do a bunch of research before you make content, it's going to slow you down and it's going to make it hard for you to really commit and be consistent about that topic. But if you're able to riff on topics that you're already passionate about and you already know a lot about, that is your key to building a following just because you're going to post about it consistently and already be passionate about that topic.
If you're just starting out on social media, what equipment do you need to invest in?
All you need for social media is a cell phone and a microphone. Do not buy lights. I get questions all the time of what type of light should I get to start my podcast or start social media? And my answer is the same every single time. Put yourself in front of a nice window, a big, nice window, and just hit record. Lighting takes a lot of time to master. And to get good lighting, you're going to have to spend a lot of money. And so if you're not willing to spend that money and commit to really learning lighting, the best thing you can do is just film outside during sunset or just sit next to a big window. The key to good lighting is big diffused light. The best big diffused light is the sunset. The second best big diffused light is the window in your office. So if you're just getting started with social media or making video content, you need your phone and you need a microphone for good audio. You do not need to invest in lights. And one other tip about using a window to light yourself is turn off all the other lights in the room. You really just want one light source lighting you, because if you have a lamp that's hitting your face and a window that's hitting your face, the lamp is usually warm light, the window is cool light, and when those mix on your skin tones, you get all kinds of like greens and magentas that you don't want. The best thing you can do with lighting is sit in front of a window and turn off all the lights in your home office.
Why aren't more advertisers talking about cost per acquisition?
Cost per acquisition could be the most informative metric in an ad campaign. And the reason is that it allows you to scale that ad campaign because you finally know your return on ad spend, your ROAS. So for Bennett Creative, I am more than willing to pay $100 per lead, $200 per lead, because some of those leads turn into $5,000 projects, $10,000 projects, $100,000 projects. So those leads cost me very little compared to what the potential revenue of those leads can turn into. Once I know what my target cost per acquisition is, I can start to scale that ad campaign. I can spend more because I know I'm going to get more. If you're looking to build your brand with social media or digital ads, reach out to Bennett Creative today.